Welcome to Business Matters with Amy Smith on Eastern Sierra Now. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Your support helps keep these important conversations going. Today, I'm joined by John Wentworth. John is the president of the Mammoth Lakes Trails and Public Access Foundation, or MLTPA. John has been a driving force behind sustainable outdoor recreation and public access in Mammoth Lakes and the Eastern Sierra, and today we're covering an exciting milestone. Mammoth Lakes is the first jurisdiction in California to adopt California's Joint Strategy for Sustainable Outdoor Recreation and Wildfire Resilience. We'll explore what this means for our community, how it will help protect our recreational assets from the growing threat of wildfires, and how other towns can follow Mammoth Lake's lead. Plus, we'll discuss how you, whether you're a local, a visitor, or an outdoor enthusiast, can get involved. John, it is so good to see you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
How have you been?
Good.
You've been very busy.
Yes.
Let's talk about what's been keeping you so busy.
Okay.
Let's start with the MLTPA. For those who may not be familiar, what is the Mammoth Lakes Trails and Public Access Foundation, and what does it do?
So the Mammoth Lakes Trails and Public Access Foundation, otherwise known locally and congenially as MLTPA, we're a nonprofit public benefit foundation, corporation based in Mammoth Lakes. We got started in 2007 in response to some backcountry access in the town of Mammoth Lakes.
Was the access limited in 2007? Was that the catalyst?
Yes. There was a very specific catalyst, and it had to do with backcountry skiing and snowboarding access to the shorewinds in Mammoth Lakes. And the town of Mammoth Lakes, as you know, has only been incorporated for, I think, about 40 years.
Oh, okay.
So we're getting started with, it's a pretty young jurisdiction, pretty young town. And I think folks have really kind of taken for granted the integration of the town with the landscape that surrounds it.
Absolutely.
So that that period of time was really a time to really reflect upon and think about, well, look, actually we need to integrate and blend and connect the town to the landscape that surrounds it.
And when you're there, there is no real separation. You can walk out your door and be in the backcountry in literally 5 minutes.
Less.
Yeah,
Less.
absolutely.
Less.
And the Sherwins is such a treasure. I've snowboarded it. I know you've skied it. So it's amazing that we have access to that, and I think we take it for granted sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that there is no such thing as like easy access.
Yes.
You know, people have to think about it. Communities have to think about it. You have to plan for it. You have to take the types of regulatory and legal things that need to be done to ensure that the access is there and is preserved. My family is originally from New England, and there's a lot of important work there about making sure people have access to beaches and things like that have been in place for hundreds of years. And when I arrived in Mammoth Lakes and was doing the things I was doing there and realized that that access was not in place, I thought, well, this is maybe something we should all do.
I think that's a great idea. Now, you've been on the Mammoth Lakes Town Council since 2014, and you're also the president of the MLTPA. How do these roles intersect when it comes to shaping the future of our outdoor spaces?
So it's complementary. And I do everything I can to make sure that there's no conflict of interest perceived or anything between the actions, the work I do in the council and the work that we do at MLTPA. Okay. But it's really great to have kind of a think tank, to be working with a nonprofit foundation that is all about sustainable outdoor recreation issues, trends, laws, policy happening in the region, in the state, across the country, and to help that sort of inform the work that I do as a council member.
It could be a liaison on each side, I would imagine.
Yes, it's very complementary. One is always informing the other, so that's always really good.
That's great. How long have you been the president of MLTPA?
Since 2006.
Oh, wow. So even before town council.
Oh, yeah. I was doing this way before I got involved in politics.
Oh, that's good to know. What first inspired you to get involved in local government and outdoor recreation advocacy?
Well, there's a sequence to that. So the outdoor recreation advocacy came first. So the issues around the shorewinds and making sure that at the end of the day there was deeded legal public access across the entire southern boundary of Mammoth Lakes to public lands. That all came first.
Oh, I see.
And then we sort of worked on those things. We worked with the town to put together a new trail system master plan for the town and the community. And then we ran two revenue campaigns, one for Measure R for recreation trails and parks, and then another one for Measure U for recreation, arts and culture, and mobility.
Okay.
And these two measures generate about $1.5 million a year into the community's Mammoth Lakes for those specific purposes. And there's no sunset on those things. So once we sort of got done with a lot of that work and got into getting those revenue measures passed, I felt it was important to make sure that the work that the community had done was being stewarded and kind of looked after as things move forward. And I'm glad I've done that.
That's great. I'm glad you have as well, because I've seen your work over the years, enjoying being in the backcountry and being in Mammoth. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It's really hard being in the backcountry.
It's a
really
beautiful,
hate doing that.
It's got to be a terrible office to have to.
The worst office in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Now, over the years, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in Mammoth Lakes and how it approaches sustainable recreation?
I think that's a very good question, because when we first started this in 2006, 2007, it was a period of really intense interest in real estate development. And the leadership of Mammoth Resorts at the time was really interested and saw their way forward to maximize their profitability was through real estate development. And there were about 11 or 12 really significant, very large real estate development projects that were being proposed. And this is right before we got into, there's a boom and there's a bust, and there was a bust coming. But when we started this, it was all about real estate development. And with what happened in 2007 when the market collapsed, that calmed down, but it was still in the culture of the town, the economic culture of the town, it was really all about, well, we're only going to be successful if we do some really big, significant real estate development projects. That was the game. And over time, and outdoor recreation was thought of as kind of a sort of an afterthought. Well, we've got a ski area here and the hiking's nice, but we're going to make the money's going to be made in real estate.
And that's enough. We're not going to think outside of those boundaries.
Exactly. And things have really changed. And the outdoor recreation economy nationwide, certainly in California, is a multi-billion-dollar sector of the U.S. economy. It's bigger than a lot of sectors you would think about, like mining and agriculture and things like that. And the ski area and the ski resort has moved on to the Icon Pass, which is a whole new, different business model. And now it really is Mammoth Lakes as a destination, the Eastern Sierra as a destination. It's about the recreation activities is what compels the visitation. People come to do those things. And then the tourist economy captures the resources, the money, and makes the money out of it. But it's the outdoor recreation activities that drives the economic activity. And it's recognized, I think, in Mammoth Lakes now as that is the principal driver of our economy.
And I love that type of economy. People can come and visit and, and enjoy it, take pictures and come home, go home and enjoy those memories.
Yes.
So I think that's a valuable economy to have, and to put the energy that you have into it, I think is valuable as well. Mammoth Lakes just became the first jurisdiction in California to adopt the California's Joint Strategy for Sustainable Outdoor Recreation and Wildfire Resilience. Why is that significant? And what does the strategy entail?
So the strategy came out of a project that MLTPA put together called the CalRec Vision. And this had to do with the fact that there are numerous states across the country that they have things called offices of outdoor recreation. And California, even though it has the largest share per capita of outdoor recreation spend and economic activity, it has no such thing. And there's a long, kind of a sad story of attempts to establish that in California that have not so far worked out. And so it became apparent that we needed to do something to align outdoor recreation culture and activities with the significant policy objectives of the state of California. Things like climate change, 30 by 30, nature-based solutions to climate change, diversity and equity, and those kinds of things. So we produced a white paper called the CalRec Vision.
Okay.
And from that paper, the Wildfire Task Force called us up and said, hey, would you be willing to put together a leadership group to draft a policy document, the joint strategy, that are elements of their action plan?
Okay.
We said, sure, we'd love to do that. So we pulled together state, federal, local, county thought leaders, leadership in those areas, and drafted the document.
I see.
And that was a very interesting, fun, rewarding process, and we got it finished. And for the efforts of the group, it was acknowledged as the Partnership of the Year by Region 5 of the U.S. Forest Service.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very nice.
Yeah, yeah.
But then from 2022, 2023 until like into 2024, we kept waiting for the state and the feds to do something with it. How are you going to implement this? How are you going to start, activating this and making this a living thing throughout the state? And nothing was really happening.
That's disappointing.
It was kind of, it's disappointing. But it's like, okay, well, we have to do something with this.
And push it forward.
Push it forward, exactly. And then it became clear after the last election, and we're kind of waiting, okay, well, let's kind of see what's going to be happening with this. And then at some point, it became clear that if communities like Mammoths, like the Eastern Sierras, throughout rural California, didn't start doing something of their own volition, nothing was going to happen. So that's how we decided to take on this project of getting the joint strategy adopted by jurisdictions across the state. And we started with Mammoth Lakes. And stay tuned. We hope to get it adopted in as many counties and jurisdictions in California as we can.
I'd love for you to come back after those jurisdictions come on board and let me know how that's impacted them in their communities. But in the meantime, what does this strategy mean for the town of Mammoth Lakes, and how will it directly impact our community and our visitors?
So wildfire is a big deal. It's certainly a very big deal in California. We've seen Paradise Fire, all the major fires we've had over the last couple of years, and certainly with the situation in Los Angeles. And there are a lot of communities in the state, certainly in the rural areas, that are vulnerable to this kind of a threat. And with what's been happening recently with the current administration in Washington, it's very clear that these communities are going to have to be increasingly self-reliant. They're going to have to look out for their own public safety. They're going to have to marshal their own resources to harden their communities up against the threat of wildfire. And by bringing the recreation assets, infrastructure, programs, the things that the visitors come up here to experience, they do it on trails, they do it with bathrooms, they do it with campgrounds and things like that, it's in the interest of our community, certainly, to bring these two things together so that at the same time that we are hardening up our community to the threat of wildfire, and we are being proactively engaged in that, we can be improving and hardening up the recreation assets and the infrastructure and the programs that compel visitation that drive our economy. So we have to be doing both of these things at the same time.
And was that the defining moment that made this the right time for Mammoth Lakes to take the lead?
Yeah.
Especially with the wildfires and what we've seen, even just in the last 10 years, I think there is no better time.
You look at communities like Paradise and what's been happening up in Northern California, Central California, around Quincy, and places like that. And a lot of communities that are recreation dependent. When a wildfire comes through and does what it does, your economy stops that day.
Yes.
The lights go out. And it's devastating. And we can't, with the retreat of the federal government, with the retreat of a lot of the federal resources that a lot of us have counted on for wildfire and things like that, we have to be increasingly self-reliant. We have to be smart, forward-looking, and be looking out for our interests as we go forward.
Well, and I'd love to talk more about that, about wildfire resilience and sustainable recreation. Now, the Eastern Sierra faces increasing wildfire threats, as you'd mentioned. How does this strategy help protect our trails, forests, and our infrastructure?
So it provides, there are 4 goals in the document, and there's about, I think, 25, almost 30 different key actions, specific actions that can be taken that are tied to infrastructure, communication, programs, things like that, that as communities take on specific projects, to deal with the wildfire threat, hopefully proactively, but even during a fire or recovering from a wildfire. The strategy lies out a whole menu of different things that can be done in those during those activities and while those things are happening to proactively be ahead of what these threats look like, and to harden up the infrastructure that's so important to the communities that they depend on.
Well, and I think proactive is key here because it's important to have those that infrastructure in place prior to the fires, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation when you learn what you need when you're in an emergency situation.
Too late.
It is too late, and there can be delays, and it can cause additional problems and issues. So, what were some of the biggest challenges in balancing outdoor recreation with environmental sustainability?
That's a topic that's been around, for 100 years or so. I mean, it's as long as there have been public lands in the United States.
Yes.
But what's really important is to be thinking about the role and the effects of human beings on these landscapes. If human beings are just running roughshod, rampant, all over the place, that's not good for the natural resources.
No.
And so the infrastructure that goes with sustainable outdoor recreation, trails, parking lots, most significantly, importantly, are the bathrooms.
Well,
Bathrooms, can I say that again? Bathrooms.
And it doesn't only impact, it impacts other visitors as well.
Exactly.
So we don't want to do something that's going to cause other people's visit to be poor.
Exactly.
So it allows people to come through and everyone have a beautiful experience when they're here.
Exactly.
Bathrooms is key. I agree with you.
Bathrooms are key, and the degree to which, as you say, that the infrastructure is managed well, you feel safe, it affords you to have the experiences you want to have, but it's done in a way that's not going to compromise the natural resources, which is the very reason to come here in the first place.
Yes.
So striking that balance is really important.
Yes, I think that it is. And then are there specific wildfire prevention efforts that locals and visitors will start noticing as a result of this initiative?
That's the things that will be noticed as part of the mitigation and the fuel treatment efforts that are happening that are specific to wildfire. So there's probably not a lot of things that you would see on the recreation side, but you'll see it in the context of the wildfire, the work being done for wildfire. I think we all know it's almost pretty close to impossible to build any new recreation stuff out on the landscape. Building a new trail on federal land is extremely difficult. So the impetus and the activity is happening on the wildfire front, the treating of fuels, the thinning of forests. There's been a lot of issues about the management of forests over the last 100 years. And I think we're trying to make up for some lost time. And the trick is to, as these projects come forward to do fuel treatment work and to do that kind of work to make the forests healthier, to integrate the recreation infrastructure, trails, bathrooms, campgrounds, these kinds of things into those projects so that they work symbiotically and they work symbiotically together.
So John, that's so much information. I've got more questions for you though. So if you're comfortable, I'd love if you could stick around and answer a few more questions for us.
Of course, yeah.
Great, thank you. For those of you who are just joining us, we are here with John Wentworth of the Mammoth Lake Trails and Public Access Foundation. And we'll be right back.
Looking to take control of your energy costs while making a positive impact on the planet? At High Point Solar, they bring affordable, reliable, and clean energy straight to your home or business. We specialize in custom solar solutions designed to fit your unique energy needs. Whether you're looking to lower your electricity bills, increase your energy independence, or boost your property value, we've got you covered. With High Point Solar, you get expert installation, top-tier solar technology, and unmatched customer service, all with the goal of helping you save thousands on energy costs. Plus, with a variety of financing options available, switching to solar has never been easier. So why wait? Go solar today with High Point Solar and power your future with clean, renewable energy. Visit highpoint-solar.com or call 760-937-5849 to get your free solar consultation. So don't wait. Cut the cord with High Point Solar and enjoy your energy independence. Look, don't be the last to know. Sign up for Eastern Sierra Now's email list and get the latest news, events, and stories delivered straight to your inbox. It's like having a personal news concierge minus the fancy suit. Except for mine's cooler because it's got the logo. Stay connected, stay informed, never miss a beat. Sign up today.
Winter air travel in the Eastern Sierra is easier than ever. Advanced Air operates flights 4 days a week from Mammoth Lakes to Hawthorne, LA and Carlsbad. Stack on savings with bulk ticket specials through the Altitude Club membership. United Airlines has daily direct flights from Bishop to San Francisco and Denver. Trust us, you'll want dibs on the window seat. Sierra views from cruising altitude are unreal. Plus, locals enjoy special discounts. For more details, head to visitmammoth.com/flylocal.
All right, welcome back. John, thank you for sticking around.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to statewide and community impact. Now, you've said that other communities should follow Mammoth Lake's lead. Why is it so important that more jurisdictions adopt this strategy?
Well, obviously, it will be up to those individual jurisdictions should they want to adopt it. But in light of the fact that there really wasn't, and there hasn't been a whole lot of activity from the state and the federal partners to get the thing out there and get it implemented, MLTPA, using our own resources, there's no state or federal money that's helping us get this out there, is to reach out to those communities, jurisdictions, counties, towns, cities, that have a similar configuration to Mammoth Lakes. Tourism-based, outdoor recreation-based, key interface with federal public lands. This could be valuable. And I think none of us really know sitting here today what the future of public lands in this country is going to look like. We don't know what wildfire work is going to look like going forward. And it seems like a good time to give as many tools as possible to local counties and jurisdictions, small, probably mostly small kind of rural areas that are dependent on this type of economy, to have the tools they need to engage with productive conversations with federal land managers, the federal government, maybe the state government, to say, look, love that you want to show up and help us out with our wildfire threat. By the way, we have all these things that need to be protected, hardened, stood up, and can play a role to help you with your fight against the threat of wildfire.
And along those lines, what can local residents, outdoor enthusiasts, and business owners do to support this movement?
So they should go to calrecvision.org, if I can
Okay.
make a shameless plug.
Well, we will put that up on the screen as well. Could you say that again for us?
calrecvision.org.
Okay, great.
And if you go to that site, you'll be able to get a sampling of what's in the joint strategy. You'll be able to download the full document as was published by the state.
Okay.
But we also have kind of what we like to call kind of a cheat sheet, which is just about a 3 or 4 page document that lines out the goals and lines out all of the key actions. Download that, read it, take a look at it. Think about the community where you live or the place that you love to go, the communities that you care about, and start to imagine, that tactic, that strategy, that key action could provide a real benefit for my community. And so could that one, and so could that one. And then at that point, it's like, okay, start advocating to your local leadership to say, we need to get this thing adopted as a guiding document so that when we're doing wildfire prevention efforts or we're doing recreation construction, recreation enhancement efforts, that the wildfire threat and the promise of outdoor recreation are going to be working together as we go forward.
And what obstacles do you see in getting other towns or counties to commit to this kind of action?
I don't see any.
It sounds just the mindfulness in itself in gaining the education that you mentioned and then going out and putting that into play in the real world is so valuable.
This is just about communication, reaching out to people. We are a nonprofit foundation. We could use some money. We could use some resources to help do this work. As I mentioned before, we're paying for this on our own. This is not being supported by a grant or anything. So we need the resources to do that communication, to do the outreach, and to meet with people, to have those conversations, help explain why this may be valuable, and let the individual jurisdictions make their own decisions about whether or not they think it's going to be something important for their community going forward.
And I think it will be, and I think it is important. So I value your time in coming in. Let's take a moment to look ahead.
Okay.
This strategy opens the door to state and federal funding. What types of projects could directly benefit or benefit the most from funding?
So there are 3 primary phases with the wildfire and the recreation, this interface of these two worlds. One is prior to a wildfire. So fuel treatment work, and how do you integrate your recreation assets into wildfire treatments? Trails, multi-use paths, parking lots, campgrounds are a great set of existing infrastructure that can be used to help get ready for a wildfire should it happen. Creating defensible space, creating good working areas for firefighters should they arrive. So there's a lot of work that can be done before a fire even happens. Should a wildfire happen, making sure that your recreation assets are well documented. They're in something called GIS. They're in the maps that the incident commanders will be using as they fight the fire.
Oh, I see.
To make sure that, okay, wait a minute, don't go rip up that trail over there. Don't go do this or do that. Yes. So that the assets can survive the wildfire itself. And then if any community is so unfortunate as to have to go through a wildfire incident, there are a number of different ideas in there about how to manage recovery and how to start getting a community back up on its feet, get its economy back going again. There's a number of things in there that are good things to be thinking about to get ready for recovery.
And that gives me peace of mind as a homeowner in the Eastern Sierra that somebody's thinking ahead.
Yeah.
As to what would happen. I know in our own homes we make our own fire plans, but to make a fire plan for the surrounding areas, it's important as well.
Yeah, and just think of all the trails and the recreation assets in your community.
Yeah.
They all have a role to play in helping should a wildfire incident happen. They have a role to play as defensive measures and proactive measures to help fight that wildfire once it shows up.
And if you could see just one major change come from this strategy in, say, the next 5 years, what would that change be? If you had to pick one.
It's the understanding that wildfire and recreation are of the same. They're not siloed things. They're not two separate things. Recreation takes place in the landscapes, in the environments where wildfires happen. And wildfires and the threat of wildfire can be mitigated by forward-looking and proactive use of recreation assets to defend against it.
And what's next for MLTPA in terms of sustainability and recreation initiatives?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We have a couple things that we're working on. We have been identified to serve as an industry sector coordinator for recreation and tourism for the California Jobs First effort program, which is a statewide effort. We are all in the Eastern Sierra region, 7 counties in our region. And so we'll be under contract for about another 18 months to help identify and nourish and develop sustainable outdoor recreation tourism projects, provide technical support, find funding opportunities for that. So we're very excited about that.
That is exciting.
It's very exciting. We also we convene and facilitate the Eastern Sierra Sustainable Recreation Partnership, which we've been doing for the last 4 years. This is a public-public partnership between federal land managers and local jurisdictions, counties and towns and things like that. So we're working on that. But I think the biggest thing right now is really maintaining our situational awareness of what's happening from the federal government. These are all, of course, federal lands. These are all 90% federal land counties.
I heard you speaking on NPR the other morning as I'm
did
driving
you?
to work. I did.
Oh,
yes.
good.
Have
Lucky
you heard
you.
the interview?
I had no idea.
I recognized your voice right away.
Yeah.
And what clued me into listen a little more closely was they had mentioned Mammoth Lakes.
Oh, good.
And the next thing I knew, your voice was there and you were talking about sustainability and funding and what the future holds. And in those respects, we don't know for sure.
We don't know. And we're sitting here on a beautiful midwinter's day and things are happening quickly, but we're trying to keep a very close eye on what is happening so that we, in our region, we can be nimble, we can be adaptable, and we can be responsive to whatever comes our way.
That's great. And I appreciate that. And I'm sure our listeners, our residents, our tourists, our visitors do as well. Let's wrap things up.
Sure.
You have spent years advocating for trails and public access. What is your favorite outdoor spot in Mammoth Lakes? If you can tell us, if it's not a secret.
Okay, if you're gonna keep it confined to Mammoth Lakes.
Well, it can be anywhere in the Eastern Sierra. Let's open it up.
We'll start with Mammoth Lakes.
Okay.
If there's sufficient snow cover, then I have to say the Sherwins.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The Sherwins. I spent 2 days up there this last weekend right after that storm, and it's it's a really special place. It's as you mentioned, so close to town. It's integrated into the lifestyle living in Mammoth to be able to go there. And then when there's not snow on the ground, I love to get up on the Mammoth Crest. And I go up by the Crystal Lake Trail and then get all the way up on the crest. And the trail up there it kind of comes and goes. But it's a really beautiful place to be, and then probably come back down on the Duck Pass Trail.
Oh, I like that trail. I've been on it several times
Yeah.
on horses as well.
Yeah, it can get crowded, so it's nice
Yeah.
to get up high and have a nice day up high in the Alpine, and then
Yeah.
come down in the afternoon.
Yeah, I remember being on the Sherwins one year, and we were going to do a quick snowboard trip, and
Yeah.
and we were lining up to take our runs, and it was Easter. There were moths flying up.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you ever had that experience? It was magical. There must have been a hatch because it was warm in Mammoth,
Yeah.
and they were coming up
Wow.
on drafts. I had never seen anything like it before. It was just amazing. And there's so many moments like that
Oh,
here
yeah.
in the Eastern Sierra that are just so invaluable.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah. Do you have any final words for our listeners on how they can support sustainable recreation and wildfire resilience?
There are a lot of ways to do that, but I'm going to point folks to two websites.
Okay.
One is the calrecvision.org site, where you can download the full joint strategy. You can read about it. You can also help us. We are trying to raise some funding to help support this effort, so that you can do that there. But also go to MLTPA.org, and that'll give you a sense of the full complement, the full menu of things we're working on. We're working on a lot of projects here in Mammoth Lakes, but also in the Eastern Sierra region, and we're doing things statewide. We're really trying to bring the state of California into the sustainable outdoor recreation world. California doesn't really seem to know what to do with sustainable outdoor recreation, so we're trying to help.
Well, and you being here and explaining even what that means to our viewers and our listeners, that makes a big difference. We will put those websites up on the screen for you, and we hope that our viewers and our listeners visit to understand more and to make a donation to help your efforts.
That would be swell.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
John, thank you so much for your time. It is always a pleasure to see you.
Yep.
And I am completely impressed with everything that you and your organizations are doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's a wrap for today's episode. A huge thank you to John Wentworth for joining us and sharing insights on sustainable outdoor recreation and wildfire resilience. To learn more, go to MLTPA.org. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Your support helps us keep bringing important discussions to the Eastern Sierra and beyond. Are you interested in advertising opportunities or being a guest on Business Matters with me, Amy Smith? We love to feature local businesses, community leaders, and change makers making an impact. Reach out to us at info@easternsierranow.com and let's make it happen. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Amy Smith, and I'll see you next time. Until then, stay mindful, stay connected, and take time to enjoy our beautiful Eastern Sierra.